Hello, I'm Lewis Doherty. This is my demonstration for Footstepper, which is my program for AUD313. It's a sample-based footstep generator with plenty of sliders to tailor the sounds to whatever you're going to use them for, movies, games, or stuff like that. I'll just go ahead and get started. So you have to select the material. I'll just kind of go through all the ones in the list as I go along. So once you've selected a material, there's a master volume slider that's completely independent of the other volume slider. This is just in case the program's too loud or too quiet and you just want to boost it up a little bit. This one's the footstep volume slider. Um, Changes the volume of the footsteps, if you could believe that. You'll hear there's no audio playing yet. That's because you have to change the speed slider to actually get the guy moving. Yeah, so the speed slider is tied to a blend space in Unreal Engine, so that when you change this, he cycles through, I think, 5 different animations that all blend together. Next up, we have the weight slider, which changes between light and heavy samples of the footstep as you slide it. And as you can see, you have a little bit of visual feedback in the middle for that. Yeah, pretty cool. Next is the pitch slider. You know, high pitch, low pitch. I also added a low pass and high pass filter in case you want to cut out either end of any of the sounds. Yeah. So I'm going to move through a couple of the materials just now. The one you just heard was hard wood. Next we got creaky wood, solid metal, sand, dirt, fine gravel, chunky gravel, and finally leaves. Yeah, there's also the randomize and default buttons that you might have seen me hit a few times already. The default button just switches everything back to how you found it when you opened the program, apart from your material and the master slider. The master volume sliders are. And the randomize one randomizes everything but the master volume and the materials. I move on to the pocket bit section now. So it's just for stuff the character might have in their pockets or hanging off of them. So like a chain or shells or little bits of metal, stuff like that. And these can be, you can have multiple of these on at once if you would like. So, and then change a few sliders for them independently. The final thing to mention is the little rotation slider I added because it just felt like it needed it. I did that in my spare time. Yeah, so you can run in any direction you please. Okay, so inside the Unreal Editor, I've got all of this set up so that it can be, all the anchor points are set so that it can be resized however you want. There will be some overlapping, of course, if if you have it too small, but for different size displays, it should display correctly. I also just want to mention I'm quite happy with how the UI turned out. I wanted it to look quite like sleek and modern and readable, and I think I've achieved that quite well with quite with good choice of colors. The icon itself is supposed to be, taking a step forward. If you want to look at it like that, I thought that was kind of fun. Anyway, moving on to the actual node graph for the UI. So this is all the material buttons. So when the button is pressed, it activates the corresponding function. So if I open up this one, it sets the state within Wise and sets this variable to show what material's been selected. And it has one of those for each of the buttons. There's the one for the rotation slider, quit button. The default and randomize buttons were both put into sub-functions just to clean things up a bit. The default on start one is different because it sets the master volume and the materials back to 0 as well. But these ones exclude the master volume and the material. I'll open that up for you. Yeah, it just sets all of the variables to a random float and then sends them to the RTPC in Wise and randomizes them. Here's all the sliders. They all work about the same, apart from these two. Most of the sliders, when the slider value changes, so when you drag one of these little bars, it sets a variable within Unreal Engine so that it can communicate with the slider, and then it sends it to Wise with the RTPC to change it within there. The speed slider and part of the weight slider work within Unreal Engine using a blueprint interface, so it sends the value from the slider into a function in the blueprint interface, and then that can be called in a different blueprint. So I think this one gets sent to the dummy, which is the runner character in the middle. And then it sets the variables there, and then in the animation blueprint, they're called whenever the animation gets updated, and sets the corresponding stuff within the anim graph. This speed goes into a blend space, which, if you go through the different settings, I'll go through it quickly. 0 is idle, 250 is tiptoe, 500 is walk, and then run, and then sprint. So as the speed gets higher and higher, it moves and blends through these few different animations here. I think that's about it. Nope, it's not about it. Here's all the tick boxes for the pocket items. So if the tick box is true, it sets the volume of it through an RTPC to 1, and if it's false, it sets it to 0. I think they all just work like that. This is the sliders that work pretty much the same as these other sliders. They're all about the same, and the default button is put into its own sub-function as well, just to clean things up. Within Wise, I try and organize everything as best as I can. So I have 2 separate folders in the actor mixer hierarchy, one for the stuff in the pockets and one for footsteps. The footsteps are a switch container that's set up to change state depending on what button is pressed, and they use states rather than switches because they're a global change. It's not based on the game object. So if, say, I hit the fine gravel button, it would switch to this blend container, and then depending on where the weight slider is, it'll sift between these two, the light and heavy samples, which are both in a random container, which switches between any one of 10 samples of footsteps. And they all work just about like that. The pocket stuff, I wanted to do them in a switch container like I did with the footsteps. I feel like it would have been a lot cleaner, but I couldn't if I wanted them to be activated at the same time, because this can only have one of them selected at a time. So in the events, you can see that reflected. So the footsteps one is just an event that plays the footstep switch container, and all of the pocket items have their own one, so they can be played simultaneously. All the effects, like the pitch and low pass and high pass, are done on either of the buses. So I have the master audio bus, which has the master volume on it, so it changes everything. The footstep one, which only affects the footsteps, so there's a high pass and low pass for those, and the volume for it. There's the pocket one too, which I think is just the low pass volume and pitch. Yep. I've organized things in here too. So I had game parameter. I have different folders for effects, filters, and volume. So this is all the volume control stuff. I have them for pockets and footsteps. Same with the filters and the effects. The state groups and the weight, heavy, and light groups.